15 jurors have returned. We waive calling of the roll.
Yes, Judge.
Thank you. Be seated.
Mr. Heck?
Detective Cochran, on cross-examination, you were shown almost at 155, correct?
I was.
What are we looking at there?
Jeans that have been ripped, cut, or torn, something of that nature.
These were submitted for analysis, correct?
They were.
If I recall your cross-examination testimony correctly, you couldn't tell if this was a rip, a tear,
Or a cut, no.
or a cut. Did they also try to determine whether or not this was an intentional cut?
They couldn't. They could not
They
determine.
couldn't say-
They couldn't tell you.
Okay. Now, you're also shown Commonwealth's Exhibit number 56. What are we looking at there?
That's Ed Yeska's office.
Okay. And we talked about this bottle of bleach. This is it right here, correct?
Yes, sir. I believe that's it.
That was collected, right?
Yes, sir.
Why was it collected?
Because it was a bottle of bleach. It was on the mezzanine level.
Okay. And there's no indication that this bottle of bleach was used in the crime in any way, correct?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, if I told you... Now, we know... You agree there was no bleach used.
Objection. Believe.
You just testified the bleach was not used on the mezzanine level, correct?
That's correct.
But if we look at Commonwealth's Exhibit 116, Commonwealth's Exhibit 115, there's no question. Is there any question in your mind that bleach was used in the janitor's closet?
No, not at all. Due to the reaction that we had with the Blue Star, as well as the strong odor of bleach.
Can bleach be used to clean up blood?
It can, and it kills DNA, more importantly.
Is it an effective way to do that?
It is a very effective way to do that.
If someone had bleach on their arms, on their hands, or on some part of them, and they needed to clean it off in a sink, and they wanted to get the blood out of the sink, rinsing it with bleach would be an effective way to do that, would it not?
Extremely.
And there's no question in your mind,
Objection, Your Honor.
and bleach was used in this.
Objection, Judge.
Let me ask you, were there bottles of bleach in the janitor's closet?
I believe so.
Were there latex gloves in the janitor's closet?
Yes, sir.
You were shown this image. This is the Blue Star. Is this the Blue Star?
It is, sir. That is the Blue Star image that we took of the hallway.
You were asked about these streaks going down, correct?
That's correct.
Could wheels have caused those streaks?
It's a possibility.
Did Mr. Dooley have a janitor's closet?
Objection, Judge. Speculation.
You were asked about doing DNA testing on some of the tape that was around Michelle's wrist, correct?
Yeah. Well, we did some latent print work on it and then submitted it for DNA.
It was submitted to DNA. If I recall your testimony correctly, and I'm asking you this to make sure I got your testimony correctly, you stated that tape is a nice surface because it's sticky and it can collect cells. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. If someone is wearing latex gloves, does that make that less likely that there's going to be transference to the tape?
Sure. Absolutely.
If the tape is being put on by, say, a tape gun or a tape dispenser and the person isn't actually handling the tape, does that lessen the likelihood of transference of DNA to the tape?
It is. Most of the time when you see transference of DNA to tape, it's at the ends where you rip it. But if you're using some type of dispenser, you wouldn't actually be physically touching the tape.
You were questioned about the time cards. There were sections of the time cards that were missing, and they're missing for what reason?
The defense requested they be tested for DNA.
And throughout this process, the defense, along with the prosecution, have we both been testing items?
Yes.
With regards to surfaces that are, what surfaces are bad for testing, trying to collect DNA?
There's no surface that's absolutely bad. There are better. The adhesive surface is really great because it holds the cells. Generally speaking, the rougher the surface, the better. But there's a lot of other factors that you need to consider just besides a rough surface or a smooth surface. It's how often it's handled, with how much force is it handled. There's a big difference between me just touching a piece of paper like this and me holding that Applebee's bag. There's a much stronger likelihood just due to the weight and force that's applied on that. There's a lot of things that play into it.
Have you ever been involved where DNA was able to be extracted from carpet or a rug?
Not in a case that I've been involved in, other than a blood stain that's been collected from that.
Can a rug or carpet retain DNA?
Sure, absolutely.
Can it do so more so than a smooth surface?
Sure. Most of the time there's so much noise, that's why we don't get a profile.
What does that mean?
What happens is that when the best DNA profile we get is a straight profile. It is just a single source profile. Unfortunately, a lot of times, and even in this case, we get multiple profiles from a single sample because DNA is so sensitive these days. The problem with super common things like carpets and floors and things like that is there have been so many people in and out of the courtroom through the years that it builds up layers of epithelial cells. And to get a single source profile from something like that that's extremely common is rare.
Thank you. You were asked about the spot of blood that was some distance away from Michelle and some distance up on some ductwork, correct?
That's correct.
You opined both on your direct and cross-examination that some amount of force, a great amount of force, was necessary to cause that blood to go that distance, correct?
Correct.
I believe you were questioned on cross-examination that whoever did this would likely have blood on them as well.
That is correct.
And do you hold that opinion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you aware of whether or not the other employees of Thermo Fisher Scientific were visually inspected?
Yes, Detective Rosing, as he went through with the employees, he took pictures of their shoe wear, some fingerprints, and I believe he did some pupils as well. He'd have to testify to that, though, as well as an inspection of the person.
Have you reviewed or are you aware of whether or not the soles of their shoes were photographed?
They were.
All the employees?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you aware of whether or not any of the other employees that were examined and photographed and questioned left Thermo Fisher Scientific that morning?
Judge, objection.
Going back, there was a large amount of blood at this scene, correct?
There was.
Was it your opinion at that time that whoever did this left the scene?
We did not see anybody at that scene that had the amount of blood on them that I thought they should from an incident such as that.
And if you didn't see them there, did you conclude that they left?
Objection, Judge.
If you can answer the question.
No, there's objection with approach. Sustained.
Detective Cochran, with regards to the pictures that were taken, why again did you take those pictures? The full body pictures of Mr. Dooley?
It was pursuant to the search warrant, and that's a standard for us. Injuries can happen in uncomfortable places. We take pictures. It's standard protocol for us. We do it not only to suspects in cases, but officers involved in officer-involved shootings. It's a standard protocol.
In an assault type, and you've investigated assault cases before, correct?
Yes, sir.
In assault cases, do we sometimes see what we call wounds to the perpetrator by the victim?
Sure.
Do you sometimes not see those wounds?
Yeah, there's the presence of wounds and absence of wounds. We're looking to document both of those things.
And you wanted to be thorough?
Absolutely.
And when you took those pictures, Detectives, do you all talk?
We do.
You talk about the case and what each has learned.
That is correct.
Okay. And was David Dooley a prime suspect in this case when those pictures were taken?
He was
Continue the objection.
Approach. Thank you. Denied. Denied.
Just objection to crime. That's it.
Was he a suspect in this case?
He was at this point. He was a person of interest, to be sure. The detectives were interested in him by that point.
Thank you, Detective. That's all I have for now.
Lawson?
Thank you, Judge.
Detective Cochran, there are showers in Thermo Fisher Scientific, are there not?
Yes, I believe there's an entire locker room facility.
Did you Blue Star that?
We did not.
Okay. The employees that gave you, or that gave Detective Rosing, I think you testified, pictures of their shoes,
Yes, sir.
is there sort of latent blood analysis done on the bottoms of those employees' shoes?
Not to the best of my knowledge, no, sir.
On the cloth, on the tops of the employees' shoes?
No, sir.
On any of their clothing, any sort of latent blood analysis?
No, sir.
Mr. Heck got into a point about latex gloves in his redirect. Fingerprints leave marks, isn't that true? We've just been talking about fingerprints. Fingerprints do leave marks, yes? So you can put your hand down and you can leave a fingerprint.
Yes, ungloved hand, you can put your hand down and leave a fingerprint.
You can also leave a mark with a glove that can be detected. True?
Mark with...
With a glove, with a latex glove.
It will be difficult to call it a latex glove mark unless it's very complete or has a specific pattern to it. It really is all dependent upon the glove.
So
But there is a possibility.
The question I ask you, is it possible?
There is a possibility that we could discern a fingerprint, or a finger mark, I should say.
You could see bumps and skids.
Potentially.
Did you see any evidence of any bumps or skids on any sort of evidence that you collected in this case? At least that you put in
Nothing
your-
that I could identify explicitly as a latex glove.
And nothing certainly in your report about anything like that.
No, I have multiple places where there are partials, which could potentially, but nothing that specifically says latex glove.
Thank you. Nothing further, Judge.
This witness subject to any recall?
He is, and we discussed that with the defense. He's going to be put back on when the chronology makes more sense.
All right. So, Mr. Cochran, I'm going to order you to do not discuss your testimony with anyone. You're still under the subpoena power of the court, so just make yourself available for the Commonwealth or defense when you are called.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Next witness going to be using some of these same items, or do we need?
A few of them, Your Honor.
Okay. Who's with those items? Okay, I'll swear you in. You solemnly swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Proceed. Ready?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name's Tim Carnahan. I'm a retired deputy sheriff. I was a detective with Boone County Sheriff's Department and retired from the crime scene unit.
Okay, so would you please tell the jury a little bit more about your background in law enforcement?
Sure. I started in 1983 at the Boone County Detention Center. I worked there till 1987, and then I was hired by the Boone County Police Department until 1992. I was still there. In 92, I went into the DARE program and was a DARE instructor in the schools for a while. Then in 97, as a member of the Boone County Police Department, I became a detective in the Criminal Investigations Division, working general investigations, fire investigations, and that's where I started crime scene processing. In 1999 to July 1st, I became full-time in the crime scene unit, and then I retired from the crime scene unit in 2003. I came back, I set out for a month. I came back because there was nobody trained to do what I did at the time, and I stayed there until 03 until 2017.
Okay. Now, Detective Cochran has already testified,
Yes, sir.
and he's gone into great detail about what the crime scene unit does. Do you know Detective Cochran?
I did.
Did you have the occasion to work with him?
All about on a regular basis.
Okay. When you would work together, would you take different roles?
Yes.
Would you tell the jury what those roles would generally be?
Well, a lot of times we'd work on smaller cases by ourselves. If it was a burglary, something minor, we'd get called out. We'd handle those cases on our own. When we had a major case, we would work together, and we would usually arrive around the same time. We would wait for each other. We would usually walk through the crime scene, size it up to determine what manpower we needed, what kind of equipment might be needed. We also then would determine what role each of us would take. Usually he was better at diagramming, so he usually did the diagramming. I was better at photography, so I handled the photography, which are both aspects of documenting the crime scene. And then we would divide up the other chores that we were probably equally as good at, which was evidence collection and evidence processing.
Now, you've provided a CV regarding your training. Could you tell the jury about some of your specialized training with regard to crime scene
Sure.
investigation?
I've had quite a few classes in fire investigation. I've had a number of classes in evidence processing, crime scene processing, blood pattern analysis. Is there something more particular that...
Well, did you have classes in photography?
Oh, absolutely.
Now, are these like glamour shot photography classes, or are they some kind of special class with regard to criminal investigation?
It's more specialized for the job because we sometimes don't have the luxury of having a nicely lit crime scene. It could be in a large open area where we would have to use certain photographic techniques in order to make it appear as if it's daylight, just from the perspective of being able to see what's there. So it was classes like that. We've had evidence collection as far as specialized classes in how to collect blood, how to collect shoe impressions, fingerprints, tool mark impressions, tire impressions, those kinds of things.
Okay. Now, and we'll get to this later, but did you use your training experience for tool mark collection in this matter?
I did.
Now, in your training experience as an officer and doing this type of work, is this Was this a large job? Was this a large scene independent process?
Yes, this particular scene, yes, very large.
Lots of pieces of evidence.
Yes.
Now, have you taught classes in these, with regard to these different techniques that you've discussed?
I have.
Okay, so what kind of classes?
A number of photography classes. I've taught tool mark impression evidence, collecting tire mark impression in soft soils and on concrete, just in general evidence collection.
Now, would you tell the jury about what you recall from May 29, 2012, and how you became involved in this case?
Sure. I was at home, and it was early in the morning when I received a call from Detective Cochran, who had informed me that the crime scene unit and the detective unit was being called out to Fisher Thermo on Industrial Road, where there was a death investigation, and it looked to be a homicide.
Okay. Do you recall about what time you arrived?
It was around 7:45.
Okay. When did you receive the call to be there? Do you recall?
He woke me up, so it probably been maybe an hour before that.
Okay. Do you recall who called you?
My recollections was Detective Cochran.
Okay. Okay. Now, in this, you talked about how you break up your responsibilities with Detective Cochran.
Yes.
And in this, for this investigation, what was your primary role?
My primary role was photography when we got there.
Okay. Now, when you're doing photography for a crime scene, how do you go about doing that, generally speaking? Do you go just right to where you find what you see as evidence, just start snapping pictures, or how does that work?
Usually when we arrive at a scene, the first thing we do is we take photographs from a distance. So we want to be able to photograph exactly where it's at, maybe street signs or some type of structures or streets that people in the community might be familiar with, since we know this is likely going to go to trial. So we start with overall photographs is what they're called. Then we move in and we do mid-range photographs, and then we do close-up photographs. Say the mid-range will somewhat be, the first photos are orientation photographs. So they're orienting you to where exactly this took place. The mid-range photographs, we move in closer, and we're showing maybe a building or something closer with maybe the evidence in it. And then we do close-up photography, which is close to identify what the evidence is we're trying to depict in the picture. From there, sometimes if we find a piece of, say we find fingerprints on a piece of evidence, then we do macro photography, which is a close-up, and the entire frame would, just the fingerprint would be in the entire frame. So it's a number of different types of photograph from different ranges, and we do that as we go along through the crime scene.
Show these things. Your Honor, what number are you on?
210? 210, right.
Thank you. Listen, I'm going to show you what's been marked as Commonwealth's Exhibit 210. Now, did you get a chance? I've just handed a stack of photos to the defense. Did you have a chance to review all these photos before you came here to testify?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, are all these photos? Did you take all these photos?
I did.
Okay. And are these photos fair and accurate depictions of what they're showing?
Yes, they are.
So, you had mentioned an establishing shot to give an orientation. Is that what? Would you take a look at this? Can you see these photos?
I can.
Okay. And what are we looking at here?
Well, the first shots I do is I want to, since this was at a factory, I wanted to get a shot of just the factory where we were going. It's a sign out front at the front of the road, and it's Fisher Thermo Scientific.
Okay. And again, we see, is that the same sign there?
This is
And this is I'm sorry, Your Honor, this is 212.
this is
Or 211. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
This is an orientation photograph. So in the orientation photograph, it shows a Fisher sign that I just took a picture of, and now it's showing the street. I'm on the street. It's actually Empire Drive. I said industrial. It was Empire Drive. And then as you're looking back, you can see the direction that I'm going to be traveling in order to get to where the actual scene is at.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Commonwealth Exhibit 212.
Yeah, that's passing by the receiving department. What I was also showing is that when we get to the crime scene, the first officers get there. One of their primary responsibilities is they're responsible for securing the scene. So this picture also shows that we have a cruiser in place and that the scene has already been secured.
Okay. And is that to keep people from coming and going?
Yes, and control all that.
Let me show you what's been marked as 213. Okay. Is that just a close-up of that vehicle?
It is that, and over top is where I'm heading because I was directed where to go once I got there.
Okay. Now, if you could stand up, and let me show you something here. Now, are these other cruisers down here? Is that the front of the building?
That is.
Okay, so we're looking at, you're going down, the building's now to the left, and you're riding in.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, I'm going to show you those two. Okay, so this is what's been marked as Commonwealth Exhibit 214. Now, is this in sequence? Take a look at 214. What are we looking at here?
This is Michelle Mockby's vehicle.
Okay, now did you just pull in and go, oh, there's Michelle Mockby's vehicle, and go over and start taking photographs?
No.
Okay, so are these out of sequence?
They are, because normally what we do is the entire orientation photos, and then we would move into specific pieces of evidence or interest. But here, we were taking these somewhat out of sequence because there was the threat of rain that day, and we didn't know how, if any way, this car was involved. So we wanted to preserve it in case down the road we found out maybe the perpetrator might have been around the car, handled the car in some way, or done something with it. We wanted to preserve it so that later we could search the car and look for that type of evidence.
So, I think it goes without saying, but at this point when you took this photo, you knew that the victim was Michelle Mockby, and then went out to photograph the car because of the threat of rain?
Yeah, that's correct.
So what's been marked as Commonwealth Exhibit 215. Again, this looks like the right side of the vehicle.
It's a passenger side, yes.
216.
That would be the front and the passenger side of the car.
217.
That's a close-up of the VIN number on the dashboard.
Okay. I'll show you what's been marked as Commonwealth Exhibit 218.
That's the interior of the car without opening the car. It's using the technique in order to light up the inside of the car and photograph it from the outside.
Okay, now if you look here, is this, what is this here that we're looking at?
That would be me standing in front of the window, and that would be the reflection back from the window.
Okay, and again, that's the driver's side.
Yes.
Okay, and then, am I going too fast? And then 219. Is that the passenger side?
Yes, it is.
And again, you have not opened the vehicle, you just wanted to document the vehicle at this point before the race.
Documented as we found it.
Okay. So let me pause here.
Just me a second.
you arrived, what was your understanding from what was ongoing there?
When I first arrived, first got to
Well, once you come in, you took the establishing shot. I don't expect that you took those shots as you came in, or did you?
I did.
So as you're approaching the scene, you just start there, you stop, and you just start taking photos. You go back out and start taking photos.
I took them from the beginning because it was such a distance. I knew I was going to have to do that anyway.
Okay.
So instead of going all the way in and having to come all the way back to start that, I just started that from the beginning.
All right, so where did you enter the building?
Where did I?
Where did you enter the building?
It was into the, they have some doors that go into a lobby area where there's a receptionist desk, and then there are steps that go from the ground floor to the top floor.
Let me show you what's been marked. All right. Previously marked as Commonwealth Exhibit 6. Is that the front of the building?
That is.
And again, these are photos that you took.
Yes,
And this is Commonwealth Exhibit 9. Is this the lobby that you were talking about?
that is.
Okay. This is another view. This is Commonwealth Exhibit 8.
Yes.
Okay. So you enter there, and what happened at that point?
Well, I met with Detective Cochran, Detective Stahl, McVeigh, I think Detective Wagner, and other detectives and officers were on the scene. So I met with them, what took place, what they found.
Okay. So what did you do at that point?
At that point, I believe, and again, this is going back some time, but Detective Cochran and I, we would walk through the scene briefly, just in order to, again, start sizing it up to see what type of equipment and manpower we would need in order to completely process the scene.
Now, when you have a scene like this, are you using a lot of equipment?
Yes.
Okay. How do you go about getting set up?
Well, we'll find an area that we know is not involved in this area. We'll search it, make sure that it's a clean area, and then a lot of times we'll bring, for this case, a number of boxes that are different sizes of Tyvek suits, gloves, a number of bags and markers, scales, evidence tents. That's just to get started.
Okay. Now, did you find a place where you could stage all these things?
We did.
And where was that?
It was at the top of the steps through that lobby, and there's almost a viewing area that is enclosed, and it's at the top of the steps. But you can see the viewing area into what we refer to as a mezzanine level of the warehouse.
Okay. I'm showing what's been marked as Commonwealth Exhibit 11. Is that area that you were referring
Yes.
to? And these are the windows at the viewing area?
Into the warehouse.
Into the warehouse, the mezzanine level?
Yes.
Okay. So, did you document the mezzanine level?
Yes, we did.
All right, let's. So, what number are we?
220.
220. Commonwealth Exhibit 220. I'll show you what's been marked as Commonwealth Exhibit 220. What are we looking at?
This is the first of a series of photographs where I don't have a lens wide enough to capture this whole area. So what I'll do is I will photograph the first part, like going in a clockwise.
Oh, can we not see?
There it is. It's on.
Oh.
It's a series of photographs. So I don't have a lens that covers all this. So I'm starting all the way on the left. I'm going clockwise around that mezzanine area in order to show what that looked like.
Okay, this is Commonwealth Exhibit 221. What are we looking at? Actually, let me. This is out of order. This is Commonwealth Exhibit 221. What are we looking at here?
This is probably the third photograph. There's a photograph in between the one I just showed in this one.
Okay. Here's Commonwealth Exhibit 222.
Yes.
And what are we looking at here?
This is, again, the mezzanine level. It's the warehouse, and it's going in that clockwise direction.
Okay, so where I'm pointing at, this is like a rail. Is it fair to say that there's some fencing here, and
Yes.
beyond that is the warehouse. It drops off into a larger warehouse.
It does, but there's an area up here that's open.
Right.
And that's what the railing's for here.
Okay. Now, I'm going to show you this one, Marcus Columns 223. What are we looking at there?
The door right here on the right is the door that goes from the mezzanine level into the upper office level of the warehouse. So on the opposite side of this is where we would have came up through the lobby. And then this one here, this door here, is again goes into some more offices that are on the second level.
Columns Exhibit 224. What are we looking at? What is this document?
This is how we found the crime scene. So what I'm documenting here is if you zoom in on these photographs, you would see blood spatter evidence that's on these boxes, on the shelving units, on the wall back here, and as well as a radial pattern around the body.
Okay, now, are these a little bit out of order? There's no placards, there's nothing laid down. So are these earlier in the investigation?
Yeah, before we put scales or anything in our photographs, we photograph it just as we find it. And then as we proceed to process the scene and we collect evidence, that's when we start putting photo markers in and evidence markers.
Okay. Now, I'm not going to review all the photos that we reviewed with Detective Cochran, but just generally speaking, would you tell the jury what you did after that? How that investigation proceeded?
Well, from there, after we documented what it looked like, and we brought up as much materials we need and items as we need to process the scene, one of the first things we wanted to do is try to locate any fingerprints that were around the body. That proved to be a huge challenge because, as any warehouse would have it, their floors are filthy dirty. It's not like people go out, mop, and clean those up. So it was just horrendous. And so we use oblique lighting with our flashlights, which is putting our flashlights down about a 45-degree angle, and we're shining it all over the floor. And what that does, it starts showing details and shoe impressions that might be there. So we did see some detail, but they were just about impossible to capture with photography, as well as other techniques we use to try to lift impressions of those footprints.
And I think Detective Cochran has testified regarding a lot of that. And
Yes.
I don't know that we need to go over it all again. Within the structure, within the building, Fisher, where did you go next?
We went through the office level upstairs, which is where, well, it was in that one photograph I pointed out. It's opposite of the way we came up the steps. It would be through the mezzanine, and then there would be a door going into the offices. So we went through that office door, and we did a brief search, not really a search, but went through making observations of what we saw that we needed to take a closer look at.
Okay. All right. And did you proceed into the office area?
We did.
Okay, let me go back. I'm going to show you what's already been marked in columns 10 and 12. Do you recognize this diagram?
Yes, that's the second level of the warehouse. The mezzanine area, the office area, and this area here is the area that we came up and we put our supplies.
Okay. And so, did you proceed into the office area?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And did you document Michelle Mockney's office?
Yes.
Now, let's take a look at that. Show you. Let's see. Columns Exhibit 225. That's the next one.
Yes.
Thank you. Columns Exhibit 225. We'll just go through this series. Please.
This would be the entrance of Ms. Mockby's office. So the door's open, and I'm just shooting a picture of what we see when we walk through that doorway.
Collins Exhibit 226.
This is inside the doorway, just to the left, and I'm photographing across her office to show what it looked like.
Collins Exhibit 227.
Yeah, this is like the corner of the wall, and again, there was a lot of items in that area, so we're just trying to show what those items were and where they were at.
Collins Exhibit 228.
It shows her desk, the area behind her desk, and shooting towards the hallway that we came in.
Collins Exhibit 229.
Again, this is the shelving, the boxes, and some of the other items that were located within her office space.
All right. And 230. And again, did you have any, I mean, you're just documenting, do you know if you found anything, any evidence that may lead to the crime within the office?
Within the office, not in the office.
Okay. One moment, Your Honor. Okay. I'm going to show you this, what's been marked as Collins Exhibit 231. Okay. Now, we're going back. Is this on the mezzanine? Okay, would you please tell the jury what this is, or what this is depicting?
This is a piece of tape that we found close proximity to the body. It was placed there before any blows or strikes to the victim in that area, or before it was finished. And what it shows is a piece of tape, and that tape we believe was part of a door that was taped open
Okay.
and then ripped off.
Okay, well, I'm going to show you what's been marked as Collins Exhibit 232. Okay, is that what you're talking about?
Yes, that's the door going from the mezzanine level into the second level of the office area.
Okay, now, looking at this image, and again, I'm referring back to 231, can you tell from 231 whether this tape was there before or it came after the assault on Michelle Motley?
Well, there's similar blood patterns on that tape as well as on the concrete.
Can you indicate that for the jury?
So there's blood pattern here, there's blood drops here and around here, which is very similar to the same size and shapes of the ones that are around it on the concrete floor. So this would have had been there when the assault took place.
And again, 232, that's the tape on the door.
Same type of tape, and it was put on, it looks like it was pulled off that door and somehow made it over to the box.
233. 233. Thank you.
That's a close-up that I took because it was of interest with that tape being pulled off there somehow and ending up over there next to the body.
Now that was placard 16, and you said it was next to the body, so just for context, this Collins Exhibit 234.
Yes.
And is that marker where it was found?
Yes.
So it's right there next to it. Please. This is Collins Exhibit 234. Now, or 235. Well, let me ask you. Step back. Make sure that we're clear. this door, I'm going to show you what's marked as Commonwealth Exhibit 232. Which door is this? Sorry.
Well, this is right around the corner from this door is where the body was found. So it's leading from the office area here into the mezzanine area.
Okay. So this door is basically separates the mezzanine level from those offices?
Yes. This is carpeted inside, this is concrete outside, and separates the warehouse from the office.
Okay. And so, I'm going to show you some more pictures. This is Commonwealth's Exhibit 235.
Yes.
Do you recognize this?
Yeah, that's the door going out to the warehouse from the opposite direction.
We're going to refer, just to keep, because we're spinning around, there's a lot of doors involved. Commonwealth's Exhibit 212. All right, now, the door that we just referred to with the tape is this one.
Yes.
Michelle Mockby's office is here.
Yes.
And this is the door that you're referring to that goes, is that this door going out to the,
Yes, it is.
okay, it's over here. Now, I'll show you what's been marked as Commonwealth's Exhibit 236. What are we looking at here?
This would be Ed Yuska's office.
Okay. Do you know who Ed Yuska is?
I do not.
Okay. You just know that's his office?
That's correct.
Okay. Commonwealth's Exhibit 237.
That would be his office again, and it'd be just another view of the office and the things that are in that office.
Okay. I'll show you what's been marked as Commonwealth's Exhibit 238. What are we looking at in this picture?
This is a bottle of concentrated bleach, very concentrated bleach. It wouldn't be something that we would use in our homes. It would be something that would have more of an industrial purpose.
Okay, and it's got a placard. It's marked with placard 46.
That's correct.
Okay. Commonwealth's Exhibit 239. That's a close-up.
That is.
Okay. Now, did you collect this item?
I did.
Okay. Now, you're taking a lot of photos. Do you ordinarily collect, are you collecting a lot of evidence in this case?
No. No.
Okay, why did you collect this one?
Because everybody was searching different areas of the building. We were trying to expedite some of this, and no one was around me when I found this bleach, and it was discussed, so we in fact I collected it.
Okay, and what'd you do with it?
I placed it in evidence.
I'm going to let the jurors, I don't think we've had a break. I'll let you take the restroom here for a few minutes, and we'll come back and finish up. In the trial of any case, it is your duty not to form or express an opinion until the case is submitted to you and not to converse with. Allow yourself to be addressed by any other person or any subject to the trial. Further, no officer, party, witness, or attorney should talk to you without permission of the court. You're instructed to report on lawful attempts to contact you to the director and myself, and you're also advised that you should not research, read, listen to, or view any news media accounts of the trial, including using any personal devices.
All right, please.